Not sure that that didn't show up at all. Okay, that was useless, but you know, if I was doing a good, like a real DVD series, this would be like a screenshot, or they'd come across like, or maybe I'll do that in my iMovie After Effects. But anyway, 3 stages of labor. We have dilation, pushing, and delivering the placenta. I had to double check there for a second. Dilation, the pushing stage, and then the delivery of the placenta is considered the 3rd stage, believe it or not. The first stage is so long that we break it down into 3 stages. So that's an important thing to know too. The first stage is early labor, which is basically 0 to 4 centimeters. And I'll get back to that in a second. The second stage is what we call active labor, and that's more like 4 to 10 centimeters. And then the 3rd stage is what we call transition. A lot of people consider that to be the most challenging stage. Transition is when the woman is going from full dilation into the pushing stage. Okay, and then that brings you right into this that second stage. I know I keep saying stages, but you've got the 3 main ones, and the first one is broken down into 3 categories. So the first one, early labor, is 0 to 4 centimeters, and sometimes it comes on you so sneakily that you're not even sure that it's happening. You might be like, is that, okay, no, I'm all right, you know, whatever. It could be a 15-second mini contraction, and then you might not feel anything for another half an hour. So this is the early stage. So when you hear people say, oh my God, she had a 24-hour labor, that takes into account that early stage, the early stage of labor, where the contractions are quite far apart, or not as long and not as intense. And are you in labor? Yes. And is your uterus doing something? Absolutely. So it's the first step, it's the first stage, and it's great. It's just that it could take a really long time. So this is why you're not rushing off to the hospital in that first stage, because you're basically better off being in your own environment, and there's no need really to rush to the hospital. Another thing I just want to interject is that a lot of people have a very kind of, their idea of what birth is very much dictated by what they've learned, not even learned, but like what they've been shown in the media, like on television shows and in movies and that sort of thing. And I just want you to kind of like put that out of your head, because it's completely erroneous. What happens on a TV show or a movie when someone goes into labor? Boom, there's a gush of water breaks, and everyone's screaming. It's like, get her to the hospital. That is so not how birth happens. It's like, it's comical. The only time, and the other thing about like rushing to the hospital, or babies that you hear born in cars or on elevators or subway platforms, those are I would almost say 10 times out of 10 are not the first birth, okay? First birth is usually much, 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 much longer. Second birth, third birth, and so on go much more quickly. So those stories that you hear, whether they're somebody you're related to or a friend or something you heard on the news, those are typically not going to be first births. First birth takes a long time. How many hours? In general, the sort of average is 18 to 24 hours. And that's counting that early labor stage that I just talked about. So it's helpful to keep that in mind. And also helpful to keep in mind how manageable that first stage can be. In a childbirth class, you will go over in depth a whole bunch of different things you can do to get through that early labor stage. And to understand how you recognize when it moves into active labor, and that the contractions pick up a rhythm and they've become longer and more intense. There's a little thing that they teach people to remember in terms of when they should go to the hospital, and your practitioner will ask you this too. Let's say you get on the phone, you're like, she's in labor, it's been like 4 hours now, I think we should come to the hospital, blah, blah, blah. What they're going to want to know is how frequently the contractions are, how long they are, and for how long has this pattern been going. So a lot of people like to adhere to the 5-1-1 rule or 4-1-1. That means contractions are 5 minutes or 4 minutes apart for at least a minute long, and that they've been in this pattern for at least an hour. So that's kind of when you want to head off to your hospital or birthing center if that's where you're going. If you're staying at home, then you have nothing to worry about. Okay, let me check my time. I think I might be out of it. Yeah, I think I'm out of time. I may have to cut something out. So thank you for joining me. And I may just continue this class in my next show. Bye. Until next time.
On the last splash.